Today's talk has been a long time coming, like maybe 6 weeks, give or take a week or two. And it has been a time of really exercising the very things we talk about, which is that things change all the time. We have had to change our venue. We've had to change our format. We've had to learn how to talk into a microphone, into a camera, and it's all very different. And about the time that I got where it wasn't too weird for me, we all of a sudden, everything went wrong. Not only the pandemic, but also we had political unrest here in Costa Rica that caused transportation problems, and we couldn't even get together. So we have been out of touch. But today, I'm going to go back to the topic that I didn't give those many weeks ago, but with a big difference. It's not the same talk at all, because one of the interesting things that's happened. This talk, by the way, was this supposed to be the second and is the second part of a two-part talk on mindfulness. Every week in my head, I have given this talk, thinking I was going to give it, and then I didn't. Every week it has changed. It has morphed into something a little different. And I found this really interesting because it has brought home to me how vast this subject of mindfulness really is. Mindfulness is the consequence of consciousness manifesting itself. I don't know if that's said very well, but we all know we're conscious, but nobody, even the scientists, don't really know what consciousness it is. We know we have it. We know we have a subconscious, we know we have an unconscious, but no one has ever really pinned it down. But when it expresses itself into a range that we call mindful. It is our own personal consciousness making itself known like a wellspring, and it doesn't have words. So the music comes out as mindfulness. That's a big topic. When Jeff and I first talked about having a two-part talk on mindfulness, we decided to, because it's so big, to bring it down to one specific expression, and that was as an antidote to stress. Because clearly we're in a stressful, turbulent, chaotic, difficult time. So that's where we started. And Jeff gave a really good first talk based on a simple book by John Kabat-Zinn, who is really the man who made mindfulness a household word. And his work has been based on stress reduction. In the 1970s, quick recap, he started a group for palliative care for people who were in great pain but had been given up on by the medical profession. And he worked on them, on this program, with meditation to see just how much abatement of suffering from pain there could be through meditation. It was wildly successful. It spread all around the world. People all know now about mindfulness. Sometimes they don't realize that mindfulness is yoga too. In the Buddha's four foundations of mindfulness, the first foundation is mindfulness of body. This takes in concentration, and it takes in all the elements of balance. And in discussing what they call the 7 factors of enlightenment, the first factor is mindfulness. The last factor, the two work as bookends, is equanimity or poise or balance. So between those two, the rising of your consciousness into action, action being thoughts, words, and deeds, and the equanimity to be discerning about how to keep all of these things in balance, because we live in a world where everything has an opposite. And one definition of the Dharma is that it's non-dualistic, that it manages to create the enlightenment through taking the opposites of everything and bringing them together into a unity of oneness. This is why you're always hearing about oneness. Okay, so anyway, we had this talk. Jeff gave the first 4 of 7 elements plus 2 that John Kabat-Zinn gave on the attitudes that we have that we can bring to stress. The name of the book, Full Catastrophe Living. So he says full catastrophe living. So what are the attributes? What are the things you can bring to it? We have had the most amazing year this year to use, as they say, everything's an opportunity to practice. We have had a chance to pull each of these out and apply them to serve as a healing or a stabilizing force in dealing with stress. The first 4 that Jeff talked about, we'll do a quick review. The first one was beginner's mind, seeing things with a fresh eye, looking at them from an open perspective. Not being judgmental is the second one, non-judging. So you are going to try and see the world as a child would see the world, fresh and wonderful, not tired and jaded and bored. And in what you see in your wonderment, you don't judge. You simply observe. Now, I listened to a very good talk by Joseph Goldstein about going beyond witnessing and observing to simply feeling without labels, which is what Lisa was just talking about. And the example he gave was if you take your hand and you move it this way, just back and forth, now you are feeling the moment. It changes dramatically if you witness it. If you look at your hand and now you're doing all kinds of other actions. It's not taking you directly into the mindfulness that comes from just feeling. Can you feel that? It's a kind of an interesting, very short little exercise that as we are taught to observe in Buddhism and as we are taught in any spiritual practice to witness without judging. Now, he's adding to that, do it with the pure emotion without thinking while you're looking. Don't look, just feel it arising. Okay? Now, when it comes to non-judging, this does not mean that you are not judging. You are judging at all times. You have to judge in order to make a choice. So the Buddhists tell us that the way we measure something to judge it is that, first of all, we ask, is it virtuously skillful? Does it do what we want it to do? If we want to get rid of anger, or we'll just take that as an example, is the antidote that we're applying actually working? Does it really help to reduce anger, irritation, etc.? The second thing is it healthy? Is it good for us? We don't want to take poison, which this is why the Buddha says, don't do addictive things. Don't take drugs and alcohol because they dull our mind, and then we don't know whether we're doing the right things or not sometimes. The third part is it beneficial for myself and for others? So skillful, wholesome, beneficial. Anything that passes all three of those tests can be considered a mindful, reliable way to continue to behave. Anything that doesn't pass that test as judgment, then we need to rethink it and change our behavior, probably, or our thoughts. So, non-judging simply means that you remain open and spacious and not come to everything with an already closed mind. Here we get back to beginner's mind. With a closed mind or with lots of opinions. Let it talk to you. Mother Teresa said something really interesting one time. Someone asked her, what do you say to God when you talk to him? And she said, I don't talk to him. I listen. And then the interviewer said, well, what does God say to you when you're listening? She said, he doesn't talk to me either. He just listens. And this, I think, kind of brings up the feeling of non-judging, of simply being open and seeing and feeling, whichever one works for you, what is arising. Okay? The third one that Jeff talked about was acceptance, that John Kabat-Zinn, it was acceptance. We'll just skip over that one. This means that, just what it says. We have to accept that which is, don't be fighting it so much. Okay, the fourth one is a very important one. It's called letting go. And Jeff talked at length about that, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that much more in the future. So then we came to my part of the talk, which hasn't happened until now. And there were 3 left, plus 2 that he added after he'd written the book. And the first one was trust, a attitude of trust. Now, this is an interesting one because in a dualistic world, you might want to listen to Ronald Reagan, who says, trust but verify. These are not meant to be things that take you into trouble because you're either naive or just kind of stupid. But trust is something that is a very solid foundation for your behavior. When you trust in yourself and when you trust in the institutions or the people with whom you're dealing, when they have reached that point. The first thing that attracted me to Buddhism was I had just been through several confirmation classes, long-term ones, in Christianity. And they kept telling me, take it on faith. And I kept having questions. And I was young. And I didn't know how to take it on faith. And so I wanted to know. And really, it became quite punishing to me because I was just constantly out in space. And then I read about Buddhism. And the first thing the Buddha taught was don't take anything on blind faith. Don't listen to me. This is what he said. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to your parents. Don't listen to anyone, and accept it without investigation, inquiry, and practice. And if you give anything that you're taught a fair trial, and you actually exercise that information, and it holds up, and you say, this is virtuous, skillful, wholesome, beneficial, then you can say, I trust this. That is based on something solid because it's experience. I never know if it's experiential or experiential. Experiential. Teach it to yourself. Don't take it on somebody else's. I was very taken with that idea because it took all this kind of suspicion away from me. Like, why is it that nobody can tell me the truth when I'm asking for it? Find it out for yourself. Find it out for yourself. So, trusting is a very important attitude. Intelligent, skeptical trusting is very important in establishing your path to enlightenment. The next one after that is my bugaboo. It's patience. Let things unfold in their own time. It's a lesson that I've learned over and over and over again. It's going to my grave with me. Maybe in the next life I will have worked it out. But I always want it to be what I want it to be. And I want things to happen when I want them to happen. I'm just an impatient person, which is interesting because I work with animals and I was always completely 100% patient with the animals. It came naturally. So mindfully, I realized I'm quite capable of being patient. It's with people that I'm not patient. So anyway, patience is one. And the seventh is non-striving. And here we get into the Tao as well as Buddhism and the Dharma. It's all part of the same thing, which is if you have to force things, if you have to struggle too much, if you're not balanced and comfortable with the efforts you're making, you need to rethink it because going with the flow, which is the natural path that things take, will get you where you want to go probably much faster than trying to wring it out and make it happen. Just let things present themselves and go. It's called being in the zone if you're an athlete. And getting back to Mark's talk, the last part of the Eightfold Path, which we jumped and thanked because I needed to be away, Mark took over and did the talk on concentration. I forgot what I was going to say. The concentration is incredibly important. I'm going to leave it at that. So anyway, if you don't focus, which I just lost my focus, here you go. Uh, all of this gets kind of meaningless. But don't fight with yourself. Take it easy. One of the things we say in loving kindness meditation is, may I live with ease, calm and peaceful. And living with ease means living in balance. And when we're in balance, we're not struggling. Just the fact of being in balance is calming. So that's one of the things we need to work on. The last two that he added after the book were generosity and gratitude. And clearly there are more, and We all know about the importance of gratitude and generosity. I would say that in this last couple of months, a great deal of stress has been involved in my life. We don't ask for it, it comes. I've had 4 members of my family come down with COVID in the U.S., and one of them very seriously so. She's in recovery still and will be for a long time. The other 3 have recovered, but we couldn't travel in or out of the country, so suddenly I couldn't get to them. They couldn't get to me. We have political upheaval such as none of us have ever seen before in the United States. I don't know about the rest of the world, but it looks pretty upset too. Every time I turn on the news, it's like an injection of stress. The whole world is chaotic and turbulent and angry and what have you. Because of that, the more external stress there is, the more you need to reach in. You can call it a bag of tricks and say, you know what? I need some acceptance. I need some gratitude. I need today to not force things and struggle so much. I need to just go with it. Or I need to take a different look at this. I need to take a walk outside and look at the flowers. And the world is new again. We all need to do this. And the worse it gets out there, the more important it is to very mindfully, very consciously reach down into your inner self where it's quiet, it's profoundly deep, like going below the waves, down deep in the ocean. It's still and it's quiet and it's mindful. And then your consciousness can rise and it will tell you a very important lesson, which is that when everything is done and all the strife is settled, it's all about love. That love is the truth at the heart of creation. And we live in a dualistic world where there's lots of anger and hatred and all this negativity. But if the dualism is negative and positive, and we decide, oh, I'm going to stay on the positive side, but I'm being bombarded with negativity, we need to realize that everything that is creative, that gets us somewhere, that doesn't take us back, but moves us forward, is love. Because love is the expression of creation. Hatred, greed, aggression, all these other things are expressions of destruction, of not moving forward. So we move forward in our lives spiritually by reaching into our bag of tricks, letting go, cling, be generous in loving. It doesn't have to be in material things. It can be generous with a smile. It can be generous with, just being around with people, but consciously, because now what you're doing is you're putting your mind in the service of your consciousness, or your consciousness in the service of your mind. I don't know which way to express that. Mark had something. I'm going to leave it here for now. I hope that was okay, because I have had brilliant thoughts for the last 6 or 8 weeks, however long it's been. Every talk has been different. I have really suddenly understood the application of mindfulness to every nook and cranny in our lives, because that is our consciousness speaking. It's manifesting. I don't know really the word for it, but it's what takes the life force that's conscious and it puts it into action. And that action can be what we think, what we say, what we do. And Mark, I would like to turn it over to Mark because he had a really good story that he was telling me inside. Now I'm not sure I altogether remember. Can we get this over
Or I
to
could
him?
just yell.
We'll just talk about.
Yeah.
Here, put that over there.
I got it.
Thank you, guys. It's a little disjointed. I apologize.
You were talking about the MRI.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So there was a study that was done in France where they were putting people into the MRI machine, and what they wanted to do was measure response times. And what they found was they would put a person in the MRI machine, and they would give them two toggles, thumb-activated toggles, one in the right hand, one in the left hand, and they were told just to randomly push one, just whatever you felt like, push it. And the people that would register in the booth, and the people in the booth would be watching the MRI machine, and what they found is they could predict up to 6 seconds before the person made the choice, what choice they were going to make, because the brain was already processing and acting on it, and yet when they asked the person, it was instantaneous for the person. And so what they found is that there's a lag time between our perception of an action and then the actual action in yeah.
I think that's a really great. The amazing thing about Buddhism is that it basically is very science. It is science oriented. It wants to know what is real, and it has most amazingly outlined and patterned psychological neuroscience before there was much to test it. But the testing is all holding it up. And so you can take this attitude, not of just taking it because it's blind faith, because you can prove it in your own life. But your mind is your mind, your heart is your heart. Doesn't belong to anybody else. Yours. And the Buddha is saying, you know what? We don't have to let it grow wild and just run in any direction. We actually can train and understand. And all of Buddhism, everything he did was self-discovery that eventually led to being able to outgrow yourself and be part of the oneness of the world. And that's all I'm going to say for today. If we go, would we like to have a little, how are we doing on time?
I think we have time.
Would we like to do a loving kindness meditation?
Sure. Unless do you want anybody else to?
Anybody else want to say anything? Jump in here if we have time. I was afraid I'd talk too long. We do have time?
We have time.
Come on, somebody say something.
Loving kindness meditation.
You'd like that?
It was a great talk.
Oh,
I'll just say that it was a great talk.
oh, I'm glad. I'm glad.
You didn't. You thought you were disjointed, but you weren't.
Oh,
Perfect.
that's good.
You were perfect.
Because, as I say, every week I've given in my head a different talk. And all my talks come only out of my head because I can't see to write and I can't research and I can't pull up quotes and all of that. So, but I really have had some amazing interconnectedness thoughts. And I've really understood why we need to be mindful because it really, it's everything. But if we can train our thoughts, which comes back to the statement, where you place your mind is the direction of your life. And it just comes automatically.
Can I say my phrase that we've
Please.
talked about with the Eight Noble Truths over
Yes.
and over and over?
Please.
And that is, you can change your mind. You can change your mind. You have the power within you. If the way your mind works does not lead to the wholesome kind of things that Ruthie was talking about,
Beneficial,
wholesome, skillful, it's your job with yourself to change your mind. And you have the power to do that. I think for me, I only get in trouble when I let other people change my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because then I'm not sure that's my path, and that's why as true as this stuff is, Everybody needs to find their own path. And that's the non-judging part of it. Your path is your path. My path is my path. And then you come to that other quality of acceptance. I can accept that this is my path. I can accept that that is your path, and I don't need to force it. It will come. I love that. I am going to add something. I love the Field of Dreams where Kevin Costner builds the baseball field for former dead baseball players because he trusted that they would come.
Yeah.
And the phrase, which if you build it, they will come.
That's wonderful.
I do counseling, and often people are trying to maneuver and manipulate situations to get their desired result. And rarely do they get it. And then they're disappointed and they have grief with all that. And indeed, it is figure out your mind, figure out the actions that you need to do as you know yourself and as you know your path. Build it, and this will evolve how it's supposed to evolve. Keep your paws off of it.
Don't judge the outcome.
Don't judge the outcome. Reduce expectations.
Yeah.
when you do that kind of thing, it's amazing the difference internally, no matter what's happening outside. Get to it. That's a changing your consciousness.
Right. I had a talk with my surrogate daughter. Hi, Cindy, you're out there somewhere. And she said, it's the most amazing thing. I've discovered something. I said, what is it? And she said, I can change my mind. She's had COVID. She'd been very, very sick. And she said, I found out that I could literally change the dial. And if I was feeling disappointed or hurt or angry, I could just select the channel I want to be on. And I said, hallelujah. There you go. She has spent years studying Wayne Dyer, who wrote a book called Change Your Mind, Change Your Life, based on the Tao Te Ching. We hear and we understand intellectually. And then something will happen, and I think that's why they call it enlightenment. All of a sudden the light goes on. When the light really goes on about love, it really goes on. It's very illuminating. It's very light. But you're right. These are choices. This is based on the third noble truth, which says that the cessation of suffering is choice. You can't stop pain. Pain is one thing. Suffering is psychological for the most part. And that you can do something about. Anyhow, loving kindness. Here we go. Everybody, I think, here knows how we go about this. But for those of you who may not, loving kindness is what drew me to the Dharma. Something else may draw you, because everyone has what they are looking to find out in its self-discovery. And my growing up in the 1930s and 40s was a time of great anxiety. The Great Depression, 2 world wars, a pandemic. It was a lot going on. And the pervading emotion in the air was anxiety and stress. And people were not kind. Even kind people were not kind because they were preoccupied. They weren't in the mood to admire a flower with a child. Their minds were on Germany marching into Poland or what have you. So kindness was for me a sort of a central necessity. For someone else, it could be something entirely different. But loving kindness is considered one of the four Brahma Viharas, along with compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, always balance. And the Buddha calls this the sublime abode. If you live in a state of love, which going back to Mother Teresa, her wonderful poem about love them anyway, because it was never between you and them anyhow, it was between you and God. So basically, it's about love. Leonard Cohen says, I was kept down below, sweeping your halls, until I understood. I am not the one who loves. It is love that seizes me. That's it. So all of a sudden, this light goes on. And when it does, that's pretty cool. But loving kindness is a practice. The more you practice it, the more you're likely to fall into that mode. So select 5 people, everybody you know who they are, yourself, someone you love, someone who's neutral, just an acquaintance, someone you're in conflict with, and everybody. And here we go. Take a deep breath. Set aside everything we've been talking about. Go to that still point. Yeah. We can chime if we want. Do we chime? Oh, there. And repeat to yourself after me, if you're in a group, or if you're sitting by yourself at the television, you can say it out loud. We're going to give a practice of unconditional friendliness, otherwise known as metta or maitri, or simply loving kindness. The Dalai Lama has been asked, what is your religion really about? He said, my religion is kindness. So it's a great thing to cultivate. And we do it by placing our minds in the service of friendliness, of goodwill. Okay? So first we come to ourselves. We always start with ourselves because everything flows from out in here, out there. And say to yourself, may I be well. May no harm come to me. May I live with ease, calm and peaceful. May I be happy. Take a few more breaths. Take your time with this. Bring to mind someone you love with all your heart. Visualize them. Smile to them. Say their name. And say, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. And then bring to mind your neutral person. It could be someone that waits on you frequently and you like them, but you really never knew their name. Or it could be a neighbor that you just wave at on the road, but you're not close. And you look at them and you actually try to see them. And you say to them, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm and peaceful. May you be happy. And now, saying farewell to them, bring to mind someone with whom you're in conflict. It can be a big conflict or a little conflict. It may be somebody that hurts your feelings, and that you're trying to practice this, not taking it personally. And you need to let go of that. I'm taking personally something that really isn't about me. Say to them, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live with ease, calm, and peaceful. May you be happy. Let that feeling kind of marinate into being very genuine. And then move on to the big one. Put our hands over our hearts, because that's where we go for this one. It takes in the oneness of everyone, everywhere, on this plane and all other planes. 8 billion people. The world is so full of tension and suffering and chaos and anger and negativity. But beyond all that, we want to love them, all of them, every one of them. It's kind of an impersonal world that becomes more personal than personal. So we say, may all beings everywhere on this plane and all other planes be well. May all beings everywhere be safe. May all beings everywhere be free from suffering. May all beings everywhere be happy. Now, depending on how we feel, we simply sit with this in silence and let it radiate until we're ready, and then we release our hands, we open our eyes, we take a beginner's mind, and we look around, Lisa mentioned. And for today, now we say, go in peace, go making peace, living gently, loving mightily, and bowing to the mysteries. Okay, guys, thank you very much for listening. Thank you all for being here.